Hey folks, today I have a great episode in store for you on I Am Northwest Arkansas. I had the chance to sit down with Chef Jason Paul and Danielle Ribaudo from Heirloom in Rogers. I went up to that beautiful 1907 building there in downtown Rogers and sat down with this couple that is doing some amazing things in the culinary world here in Northwest Arkansas. So I hope you like this particular episode. Let me know what you think and stay tuned until the end of the episode to learn how you can get a coveted seat at the restaurant Heirloom in Rogers. Cue the music.
It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I am your host, Randy Wilburn, and today, as always, I have a special guest for you. Actually, it's guests plural. I'm sitting here in the really cozy. It actually feels like a ski chalet in here, you know, but it's just very cozy. I walked in, I was like, wow. I mean, they've got a snake plant in the corner. They've got just the vibe and the feng shui of this place is really cool. Haven't eaten here yet, but that's going to change soon. But I am here in Rogers, Arkansas, downtown Rogers, where everything happens, with Chef Jason Paul and his partner Danielle Ribaudo. And
yes.
and Jason and Danielle are the proprietors here for Heirloom, which for those of you that have probably heard about it but never seen it or just heard whispers about how amazing the food is, it's probably one of the hottest culinary tickets in Northwest Arkansas when it comes to a table and getting and sitting down and eating. And one thing that I like to say is that I love to eat. And there you can see that in my girth, and so I always make fun of myself as far as that's concerned. And I would make a show just about food, but then I would be a house, and I don't know if I want to do that. That's why I love the fact that I do podcasts and not TV, so you don't have to look at me every day. But no, and
you're looking good.
No, I appreciate that. No, in all seriousness, though. Jason Paul, Danielle, thank you guys so much for agreeing to come on this podcast. I know this has been a long time coming, but I just want to introduce you to my audience, especially for those that have only heard the whispers about Heirloom. We appreciate you guys coming on the podcast.
Man, appreciate you having us. Thanks for coming out to do it. This is really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. So why don't we get started talking a little bit about Heirloom and about your superhero origin story, Jason, to kind of share with the audience. I know a little bit about your background. You're originally from Phoenix, but why don't you tell the audience how you got here to where you are today with an extremely successful restaurant in downtown Rogers in an area that's just growing by leaps and bounds, and a beautiful building, mind you.
Building is wonderful.
Where Onyx Coffee is located, and
yes.
Or I should say the Onyx Coffee Labs.
The headquarters.
Yeah, the headquarters.
HQ.
It sounds a little bit more impressive that way.
Yeah, throw that HQ on there.
Absolutely. But why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and we're going to hear from Danielle, and I'd love for them to learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah, well, it's a short and long story, a lot of gray hair. I started cooking when I was 14. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, so I'm kind of a desert kid at heart. And I started watching some shows like after school, great chefs on PBS, Graham Kerr, Jacques Pepin,
Ming Tsai.
Yeah, man, definitely. All the kind of like guys who are now sort of the OGs of,
right.
Of either Food Network or have even passed on. And so I was like, oh, that looks, pretty cool and pretty fun. And I started kind of just dabbling at home, because both my parents work. So I'd come home and it was either like, Pizza Hut or make something. Mm-hmm. And I thought it looked really easy, which it wasn't, but I thought maybe it was like, oh, I could do that. And anyway, so I started like reading magazines and books, and my parents were super cool and like bought me, magazine subscriptions. Back then the internet was non-existent. Right. So, this is like 1995, I guess. And, so I went to a book signing for a book that I had read, by a guy named Coleman Andrews, and just randomly in front of me, there was a chef, waiting in line as well, who was actually friends with the author and knew him or whatever. And my dad mainly got to talking to him, and so did I. I guess I was a little shy. And, he found out that I like cooking and said, hey, if you want to come in and hang out in the kitchen, here's my card. And his name was Alex Stratta. And I just didn't know at the time the level of chef that he was, or the level of the restaurant that he was the chef of. And so I did. I did go into that kitchen one day after school, and that's kind of where it all started. I went once and was absolutely scared shitless. It was a lot. And then I realized pretty quick that it was, not just like Burger King. This was like serious stuff.
Right.
And I realized immediately that I knew nothing about what I thought was easy. And so I started going there like once a month after school. And then it was like once every couple weeks. And then pretty soon I was just going to this, restaurant like multiple days a week after I would get out of high school. I was a sophomore, and I did that till I graduated high school, and then followed that chef to Las Vegas and helped open a restaurant there called Renoir, which was 1999, and that restaurant was a sister restaurant to a restaurant that's still open in the Bellagio in Las Vegas called Picasso. They had Picassos, we had Renoirs, and it was quite an experience. So that was the beginning, and then from there it's just been a lot of other jobs and a lot of areas of the industry, and here we are.
So as they would say, you got your bones in the industry the right way. I mean, you cut your teeth early. You were 15, basically.
I did. I started when I was 14. I worked there for free, actually, because it was kind of one of those things where it was like, you're hanging around here a lot. Are you serious about this? Like, what's going on, And it was kind of a mutual, like, yes, I will come and do whatever you ask. And if you give me, like, the knowledge, I'll, be here probably to my detriment as much as possible. And so I did. I used to stay really late, it'd be 10, 11. For a while, my parents were having to drive me and pick me up. Then I started driving when I turned 16. And, I'd come home, well after midnight, and, went to school at whatever, 6:45 or 7 in the morning back then. And, and I did that for free till I turned 16, when you're actually legally old enough to work. And then I think they started paying me something, like $6 something an hour. And that was that.
Wow. I love hearing stories like that, because part of the thing that I like doing is, and I don't know who's listening to this, but I'm always telling my kids, I have 3 boys, that, sometimes you have to, get some skin in the game.
You do. Yeah, you do. And, the thing is, I think for people that are a little bit, this was like working in a kitchen is not really, it's like a young man's sport in a way. So, most of the people that are cooking in there working 80 hours a week, they're anywhere from 20 to probably 40 years old. And then, you start getting into, chef positions or management positions. It's younger now because people are into food because of Food Network and things. But, I think those people often like underestimate what, people of the youth can do and can remember and can like absorb. And honestly, how it is. It's like with sports, you start young and you get like better at it faster than if you started at 40 or 50. So it's just kind of one of those things where I'm not saying I was like amazing at it, but I caught on to it, and I had like the energy still because I was young to not, I could do things for a long time and not be like tired out by it. And I think, maybe we underestimate what kids can do often, and don't give them enough credit for like, if they want to do something, they can probably do it.
Yeah, that's true. I think the important aspect behind that comment is simply that a lot of times if you create an opportunity for a young person to try something that they haven't done before, and just kind of keep reinforcing it, because I would assume that your parents were obviously reinforcing what you were doing.
Well, they were supportive of it. Also, somewhat like concerned because I kind of disappeared, and I was in a place with a bunch of mid-20s guys, and kitchens are notoriously a little bit iffy as far as content goes. And so I was hearing things and seeing things that I'm sure they weren't excited about. And then, of course, the whole like, hey, I don't really want to go to college thing came up. And at the time, I was going to an all-guys Jesuit high school, Brophy College Preparatory, which was literally like a school that you went to just to get into a really good college. And probably somewhere towards the end of my sophomore year, when it was kind of time to start thinking about enrolling for the next year, I was sort of like, I just want to go to public school and want to like focus on cooking. And I think, kids get into things and then they're over them in 2 years too. So that was definitely a little bit of a harder sell. And that chef, Alex Stratta, he ended up coming to talk to my parents and was kind of like, hey, I think maybe he's got something. Let's not, if he doesn't need to go to culinary school or whatever, maybe he can just stick around here and we can like teach him, and you can save some money and we'll take care of him basically, which was very commendable of him to do.
Absolutely. He was almost like your Obi-Wan Kenobi.
He was definitely the mentor, and, I'm sad to say we've lost touch a little bit, years go by and things happen, but I definitely wouldn't be, doing what I'm doing if it weren't for that, 5-6 year window with him. So it definitely changed everything.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So here you are. Would you in a million years see yourself at this place where you are here at Heirloom?
Yes and no. Cooking's a tough game, and so I think anyone who's done it for a long time has had moments where they've kind of fallen out of it a little bit or taken a break or, maybe focused on something else for a little bit, because it's definitely a stressful industry, no doubt about it. But this is it's weird. I think I was literally voted like most likely to be a chef in high school or something,
Were you really?
I was in like I saw a picture of myself, from my yearbook, and I was like wearing a chef coat. It was really weird. I'm like, why did I do that? No wonder everyone thought I was like a loser, but no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so it wasn't what it is, now being a chef is like cool. Back then it was kind of like, don't come out, stay in the back, don't talk to anybody, don't let them see you, it's a totally different world back then. So it wasn't really for like the glory when I started doing it. But yeah, honestly, so I guess no, but also yes, because it's kind of like what I was supposed to be doing from an early age. So.
Wow. I certainly applaud you for that. I think that's the perfect example of people talking about an overnight sensation. It's like, all they see is the finished product.
Yes.
So the finished product for you right now is, months and months of backed up reservations, a restaurant that you can barely get into, if ever.
It's wild.
And the food is just amazing. Anyone that you talk to, every local beat writer that covers the restaurant scene has spoken highly about Heirloom. And I hate to actually even just get my audience so excited about the food, but the understanding that they actually may never set foot in this restaurant.
Eventually.
Yeah. So I'm being funny about that, but it's just
sure.
Just that there is that excitement that's there though. And
it's definitely something that I feel, of course, Danielle and I have worked really hard to like make it what it is, but that portion of it is almost kind of like taken on its own, it's
we're
sort of
doing our thing.
Yeah. We're here, when, as you see, you're inside of it. It's a very small environment. We spend a lot of hours in here, and sometimes I don't want to say you feel isolated, but you're just doing your thing in here working, and what happens outside the walls or what people say is sometimes maybe we know about it, but it's not like, I don't know. It feels, we're very grateful that that's happened, and it's kind of happened on its own, and that's what's cool is it wasn't, something that we really bought or paid for or anything. It just kind of has happened on its own, which is cool.
Yeah, you can't manufacture this kind of stuff. And I've always told people that I think your gift makes room for you. And obviously, you've had a gift for a very long time, and it is slowly making room. Now, if you just make some more room in this room, we'd be good, right?
Yeah,
some more tables.
I need that second floor, the staircase.
It would be good. So, well, I appreciate you mentioning Danielle and your partnership, both from a relational perspective, but also in helping you get this business off the ground. But Danielle, why don't you just tell tell our audience a little bit about yourself, because actually the only reason I got to Jason was through Danielle. Now, Danielle contorted me like a pretzel in one of her local yoga classes at Trailside. Big shout out to Trailside there in Fayetteville. And actually Danielle's a very good friend of a close friend of mine, Melissa Swann, and I'll give her a quick shout out.
What's up, Melissa?
Melissa's awesome.
Yeah, Melissa is awesome, and she was a former colleague of mine, and we're still very close friends. And I've always said it's always about relationships. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
Especially in this community, man.
Absolutely.
It's very, very tight-knit. It's really cool.
Absolutely. So without further ado, Danielle, why don't you just tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and what are you doing to make what we see on a regular basis from Heirloom be so great?
Oh, well, I don't even know where to begin, but yeah, we met through yoga, and I've been doing that for 10 years. But before that, I have been in the food industry for 20 years, working front of house in Arizona also.
Okay.
That is not when we knew each other, though. So it kind of came like a natural fit when we started this. I just fell into working together. He needed a server, and I jumped in. So now, after the evolution over the few years, I do front of house management, curating the wine list, answering all your emails.
A really, really good wine list, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're pretty pumped on
She's done a
that.
good job.
Jason helps with that, too.
Tasted a lot of wine.
There's nothing wrong with that. So,
But yeah, just everything from the moment you walk in the door to making sure that you guys have everything you need so Jason can do his thing.
it was funny. Before I came up here, I was meeting with somebody downstairs here in the coffee shop. And for those of you that don't know, that are listening, the Heirloom restaurant is based physically inside the building here for the Onyx Coffee Labs.
Yeah, the 1907 building.
1907 building, which is at 102?
101 East Walnut.
East Walnut, right,
Yeah.
which is right on the Rogers Square. And for those of you that aren't really familiar with Rogers, you need to get down here. The downtown area looks like a movie set. It really does.
It
doesn't
does.
I mean,
It has the very charming cobblestone streets, and
totally
it just
does.
has it.
And I met with some of the folks from the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and they were showing me some of the renderings of what they plan to do with this area, and
That's incredible.
That's why I'm like, just thinking about that. It's people are going to be clamoring to get in here once they realize what's here.
Yeah, a couple years from now, I think downtown it's already come a long way. If you talk to some people who've been down here for a long time, they already see a massive change. But in the next couple of years, I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens.
Will be, yeah. So, but I wanted to get back to something that you mentioned, Danielle, because it's actually a theme that I've brought up quite a bit. And for those that are listening to the podcast, I actually cut my teeth in a restaurant at a young age, not as a chef, but just working, like you say, front of house. And I learned it's part of my hustle and the ability to just get out there and connect with people was I got exposed to waiting tables at an early age. And that for me was a game changer.
Yeah, it breaks down a lot of those communication barriers.
Oh, for sure. I was a shy kid.
Struggle with, yeah,
Yes.
which is what people struggle with. But I remember the woman that it was an old, really well done restaurant. It was called Cliff and Ann's in Teaneck, New Jersey. Big shout out to those guys. They're both still alive. They're still around, but they don't have the restaurant any longer. But Cliff and Ann taught me a lot about the industry. And Cliff was he was from Jamaica. He was an amazing chef. And he, it was the kind of place where, and I don't know if you guys do this here, but at the end of the night, he'd bring everybody together for a family dinner and you'd eat afterwards after everything was cleaned up. I mean, that's kind of how you do it in some of these old school restaurants.
Absolutely.
So, but that's where I cut my teeth. But I'll never forget Anne kind of walking me through and saying, okay, well, this is your section. This is your business. Mm-hmm. This is you need to take care of these folks. And what you make and what you earn will be directly correlated to your ability to take really good care of these folks. Mm-hmm. And I want my kids to, at some point in time, wait tables, because I think to me, it's one of the purest forms of understanding relationship and communication.
Absolutely.
and delivering on what you promise.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a great life
well
skill.
said.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
am I right though?
Absolutely.
I mean, it really is. It would almost be like, man, if I mean, because I think a lot of times when people, when they think about waiting tables, they think of all the bad stories, but there are a lot of good stories too. And it's I don't know about you, but whenever I go to a restaurant, I'm always like thinking 3 steps ahead of how I would have done things as the waiter at that table. And I'm
It's a little tough to go out to eat when you're in the industry
try not to
sometimes.
do that.
It's hard. You try not to, but yet at the same time, you're like, man, you want to, like, I've actually pulled people aside and said, hey, you might want to try this or that next time. This is what I think will help you get more, and I'll give them a nice tip because I'm one of those 20% guys. I don't, I hate it because I recognize the game and what's required to do this on a regular basis.
That's how people are making their living. So.
Absolutely.
Learning and knowing what not to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. But
So-
I mean, some people just kind of treat it haphazardly as if it's like a stepping stone. But I remember when I was going to school at Howard University in Washington, D.C., I mean, there were people that this was their profession.
Yes. Well,
Right.
that's something that's a lost art. Hospitality as a career is, I think a lot of people, like you said, use it as like, oh, I'm trying to get through college and I'm going to be an accountant, or I'm getting my business degree, or I'm going for whatever, I'm getting through med school, waiting tables, or whatever it is. But there's a section of the industry where there's lifers there, and it's not like where you think, oh man, that guy like burnt out and just became a waiter for the rest of his life. I mean, you can honestly make a very good living and have a very lengthy career in the service industry, the hospitality industry. And there's so many avenues to that. But it's a lost art in a way because, there are a lot of people that just do it temporarily and maybe don't put their heart in it, or it's not, in their blood to do it. But then there's that other sector, which I think is something that we, especially like Danielle, the restaurant wouldn't be what it is. I could be doing exactly what I'm doing, and if we had somebody else up here instead of her, frankly, it would be totally different and probably nowhere near as good because, it's really her attention to detail and her personality that really brings a lot of the stuff we do to life. So it's very, very important.
Just trying to keep me around. Just kidding.
Right.
He's saying all the right things, but that's part of the overall experience. It's not just the food, especially when you go to a good restaurant. You're being waited on and taken care of by someone that's paying attention to every detail.
Yes.
It
Right.
makes a huge difference.
And we like to acknowledge that, like, you're coming into this space and sitting at these tables to connect with your community. So, like, you hear that in yoga all the time,
Right.
but I try to carry it into this space as well.
Yeah, and that's not always easy to do. And like you
No.
were saying to me earlier, Jason, you were saying how, you guys have one sitting a night.
Correct.
And the goal is really to get people to come in here and to kind of, really relax.
Yes. So, I mean, it's a 2 to 3 plus hour meal. We do anywhere from 6 to 10 courses a night. It's typically averaging around 7, 8. And, that's not a quick meal. So, hopefully your company is good. But
Otherwise, it's rough.
one thing that's interesting is like, and we've even like kind of, I don't want to say complained about it, but we don't get a whole lot of like, there's some restaurants where you look and their stories on Instagram are filled with like 40 posts a night of people tagging and pictures. And, we get a handful, but we don't get a lot. And at first I was kind of like, are we doing something wrong? Why are people not posting online? And now I'm realizing I think it's because, maybe it just makes you put the phone down for a little bit.
Yeah.
And, absorb into your company. And if you're here with some friends, you're enjoying that, 2.5, 3 hours to actually just be able to focus on them and let us kind of tend to you. And you just kind of, it's like a movie or something. You go in and, you don't really have to break character. Once you're in here, you're kind of in here, and the playlist is right and the vibe is right and the lights are right and the service is right and the food is okay, hopefully it just kind of like takes you to a little bit of a different place. And, maybe that's why it's like you kind of forget about that cell phone or those Instagram posts for a little bit. And that's kind of nice.
Yeah, and obviously in this day and age, it's kind of good to disconnect, if you will, even for just a minute or two. So.
It's very, very hard to get people to pull away from that. So,
yeah,
myself included.
No, I know we're all guilty of it. So talk a little bit about, just the mindset and the motivation behind the menu. How often are you changing what you're serving and how much of your menu? Like, for instance, I met with Matt Cooper. and he had some great things to say about you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I love Matt.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Matt's really, really
and
good
his
guy.
food is ridiculous.
Yeah,
and
I love that guy.
And to know that everything is gluten free, it's just that takes it to a whole nother level because he's getting pretty creative there with the stuff.
Oh, he's
that comes
got
out of
probably
his kitchen.
one of the busiest restaurants in Northwest Arkansas, and to do that all gluten free is insanely difficult.
It is. It is difficult.
Really cool.
So what are some of the things that motivate your menu, and how are you tying it into the local movement with regard to what's available here as a sustainable resource?
Yeah, I mean we're changing the menu usually at least monthly. Some dishes stay on a little longer than a month, depending on the season. Some don't stay on but weeks. Some are gone in a night. It just kind of depends. But, typically on average, I'd say the menu changes every 3 weeks to a month.
Okay.
And, maybe there's something that's really, really banging and it's still in season and we keep it on a little longer. But yeah, it's really the ingredients that motivate the menu. We're not like an R&D restaurant or something. Like we don't sit there and try something over and over and over till it's perfect. And then it's like 6 months later, it goes on the menu. It's kind of more like, oh, look, there's some carrots. Let's put those on the menu tonight in some way. And then, maybe by like the third week they're a little better than the first night. But, I mean, yeah, we're pretty improvisational with the food. It's more just, I guess like a slight, I don't really know what the motivation is, but I think the ingredients are definitely the driver for the creativity. And then we just kind of come from there and utilize, experience and what flavors, at least in my mind, work together. And then that's how a dish is born. So, I mean, we had an incident last week where we were supposed to get some seafood and it didn't show up, and we didn't find that out till like 2 PM, and we had a different dish on by 6 that night. And that dish, it was pretty good. It's better now, and now it's like going to be on the menu for the next at least couple weeks.
It was a favorite that night.
Yeah, people loved it.
What was that dish?
It was a sweet potato gnocchi with chorizo and some other things, some like rosemary cream, and we kind of tweaked it a little bit after that night, and then the seafood showed up. So now we kind of just added it in. So that'll be on the menu. This gnocchi with chorizo and rosemary and. I don't even know what else is on that dish anymore. I can't remember, but
it's good.
Yeah, we've been open like 6.5, 7 months, and I mean, there's a lot of dishes. I started thinking about how many things we've put on and taken off and tried, and it's a lot. I mean, it's more than. Not knocking anyone, but it's more than a lot of restaurants would put on in years. So,
do you keep track of those, or do you kind of keep an inventory of what you've created just in case you want to come back to it later, or is it more?
I'm honestly not as good about that as I should be. I had a friend who was here, a chef friend of mine who was here for Roots Fest back in August, named Scott Weingard, and he runs a restaurant called Farm Spirit in Portland, Oregon, and I kind of mentioned to him, we were talking a little about the same thing, and he was like, man, well, I'll give you a piece of advice. You should start writing those things down, just because later, when someone wants to do a cookbook or whatever, you're going to wish that you had that stuff. And so he definitely had me thinking about it.
I have a notebook with very bare minimum
well, we tell them, like,
ingredients.
We try like a dish usually like right before service or something, and it's like let them try it to see what's going on so they can help describe it or give any feedback.
Notes.
That was my favorite part of the night when I was serving at a restaurant. And that's the mark of a good restaurant. Any restaurant that you're working at, if you're waiting or working in the front of the house and they don't let you test the food beforehand,
well, they're hiding something.
They are hiding something.
Right. Go sell this. It's not very good, but pretend that it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. So,
well, we're just a tight-knit group. It's myself and Danielle, and then we have 3 other people that work here total. So it's kind of like, we want everybody. If everybody's behind it, then we usually know that it's pretty good. Or, we'll take feedback from everybody. That needs maybe more acid or more salt or whatever it is, and we're not like egomaniacs in the kitchen or anything. So we'll do it if it's necessary.
Yeah. So I'm curious, is it a hassle or is it a challenge for you when you get people that come in that have certain food allergies? Because I mean, obviously that's more prevalent nowadays than it was ever before.
I mean, it's you'd be lying, I think, I think any chef would be lying if they said that it wasn't somewhat difficult to keep up with. That said, I can, bitch about it behind the scenes all I want, but it goes back to we are in the hospitality industry, and I think there's a large portion of like fine dining these days that's kind of like no substitutions, especially for the menus that we do. Like we do one menu a night, so we don't have. It's like maybe in a normal restaurant, you've got a salmon dish, a chicken dish, a pork dish, and you're like, hey, I don't eat pork. Could you replace it with some chicken? No problem.
Right.
Well, here, it's like we have one menu a night, so we don't have a pork dish sitting around if we have chicken on the menu or whatever. And if you go, I don't like chicken, I'd rather have pork, we don't just have like another dish to kind of like substitute that. So when someone says, hey, I'm allergic to dairy or whatever, we 100% always accommodate that. Mm-hmm. Always. That could mean that we literally cook almost an entirely separate menu for them just because maybe like 4 of 8 courses have dairy in them and it's a main component or, whatever. So, vegan, we do it. Gluten-free, we do it. Dairy-free, we do it. Anything, we do it. And I think that's just the mark of like a better time in food when it was like, oh, you want spaghetti and meatballs? Like, let me make that for you real quick. You're not into that, like fancy foie gras? What would you like?
Yeah.
Oh, your kid's here with you? Let me cook something for them. Oh, you need a freaking steak for your dog who's waiting in the hotel room? I got you.
Yeah.
It's like that's something that, I think a lot of places these days have kind of moved away from. And that's where the ego of chefs sort of takes over. And it's like, well, you'll eat what I make or, go somewhere else, and I think that's a mistake, I think, Absolutely. So yeah, we can like, kind of joke about complaining about it. But the reality is you got to do it. Yeah, you got to do it. And and the thing is, when you do it, and you do it like with some sort of intention, and you don't just like go, oh, well, here's like you're vegan, here's like a portobello sandwich or whatever. Some roasted red bell peppers.
You do like mushrooms, right?
Right. People get really, really stoked, and it like makes their day, and that's what it's about, really.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that goes without saying, and that creates the lure, for every organization, every restaurant is if you go above and beyond for the customer, the client, whatever, fill in the blank. I mean, people talk about that.
They do, and I think that's an important lesson to learn. Period. If we could just all be a little cooler to each other. Period. I think that would change a lot. Like, don't get mad. It's not my fault that you don't like gluten, or it's not your fault you're allergic to gluten, or
right.
You can't tolerate dairy. Like, if it's a dislike, just tell us. Like seafood's one we get a lot of I don't want to say a lot of pushback, but people don't love seafood, and a lot of times they don't say that, and then like maybe we'll serve some seafood, and I'm like, oh, like I tried, but it's just not my thing.
Right.
Like, I'd rather you just be like, hey man, I don't like seafood. Yeah. You know what? We'll figure out something that you will like, because we want you to leave happy. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are some of the local resources that you really rely on? I know that Chef Matt was, he talked about a lot of the different local farms that he constantly goes back to over and over again, and he was kind enough to mention some of them. But what are some of the local resources that you really rely on? Yeah,
well, the nice thing, for Matt especially, like Preacher's Son is busy, and I don't want to put a number on how many seats they have, but it's a fair number of seats, and most of the restaurants around town are, 50 at least seats and up. We're 18 seats and up to 20. So, we don't have really the ability to like order things by case or in large quantities. So, we definitely shop, like the Fayetteville Farmers Market is kind of my go-to. I live, we live in East Springdale, so that's like the kind of closest market, and it's, in my opinion, still my favorite. I also spend an absorbent amount of time and money in Ozark Natural Foods, the co-op in Fayetteville, because they have a really strong, everything there is organic, one, or they don't sell anything that's crap, and two, like they have a lot of local produce, and sometimes we just can't call a farmer and be like, hey, would you drive all the way to Rogers to deliver me 3 pounds of carrots?
Right.
So the co-op, has those relationships, yeah, they maybe mark it up a little, but I don't really mind paying for that because it's also like the co-op is locally owned and owner or customer owned as well. So, you know, I'll go in there and pay whatever, $1 or $2 more a pound for something, but that goes to the farmer, it goes to the community, it goes to the people who work there. And I you know, and I don't mind that. So, like we get like our dairy, we use either like Edgewood Creamery milk, and they're right across the border in Missouri. I just buy that through the co-op because I can't buy cases. We use Ozark Mountain Creamery heavy cream, which is what we use to like make our butter. And a lot of our kind of dairy driven desserts will have some of their cream in it when it's available. They only come off of a very small amount of it. A lot of it goes to the co-op. I try to just buy it all from them.
Okay.
So probably would it be cheaper to maybe call and get it directly from them? Yes, but I like being able to buy it through the co-op and just like I don't mind throwing that extra $1 or $2 to them. So, you know, and then of course like Rios Family Farm, the guys who own Yayo's, Rafael Rios and his family, you know, especially in the summer months. Like we haven't been buying quite as much from them lately, but in the summer tomatoes are the best. They've got some really amazing produce, and if you haven't eaten at Yayo's, you should.
So I have, and now I understand why that food is so good.
So
Well,
good.
that's what I was gonna say. They're growing like a good chunk of like all the stuff for their salsas, and a lot of their ingredients are coming from their own farm, and that's why it's the quality level that it is. In addition to their skill set, but yeah.
Yeah.
really
Okay.
cool.
Now this all makes sense. Where is their farm?
Well, that's the other thing. It's really close. It's like right up in North Rogers here. On like Roller Lane. So, you know, in a car, it's literally like 3 minutes from here, and it's kind of in town, but also feels like it's in the middle of the country. And there's just like a really peaceful, good vibe there. Family run everything, you know. So Raphael's father is like the one who's doing a lot of the farming, you know, and brothers and just everybody's involved. And, they're selling probably a majority of their stuff, either keeping it for themselves for their own businesses, or selling to like Matt Cooper, some of the Bentonville restaurants. And then, you know, once again, we're just small. So can I get a couple bunches of this or whatever? And usually, especially in like the spring and summer months when the farm stuff is really pumping strong, you know, that's kind of the stuff that really is the makeup of the menu. You know, it's more just me texting somebody and saying, hey, what do you have? Or going to the co-op and looking at the produce and saying, okay, this looks great. Where's it from? Oh, it's from Leitner Farm or whatever, you know, Villain's Farm, whatever.
And I think that's one of the nice things about the co-op is that if more than any other place outside of a farmer's market, a local farmer's market, it's an actual store where you can get a lot of produce and local items.
It's pretty much the only like fully local / like organic. I mean, we definitely do shop at Whole Foods a little bit too. We have to shop retail for pretty much everything, minus like
Jeff Bezos thanks you.
Yes, he does. And you know, it's, you know, we'll support any farmer that we can. I always say, like, if the product is better than what I can find locally, we're going to use it. If, you know, there's a better cut of meat or something that I can order from someone that I know or I've worked with, I'll sometimes, not always, but I'll sometimes go with that, just because quality is really, you know, we want to serve the best. And if that means that it was grown a mile away, that's the best of all worlds. If it's grown 200 miles away, well, that's fine. If it's 1,000 miles away, it's not as cool, but occasionally you got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely. So with your skill set and ability and what you have been able to do in your career, have you found a way to kind of encourage the next generation to get involved from a culinary standpoint? Is that even, I mean, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't, I mean, there's no judgment one way or the other as far as that's concerned. I'm just curious. I mean, Alex, you know, poured some stuff into you. Who are you trying to figure out a way of how you can pour some stuff into some other folks that can
Yes. I was teaching at Brightwater for a while in between, like when we had the restaurant before, around the corner, and that closed. In the interim, when we were working on this, I was teaching there. To all the people who've emailed me and I haven't responded to. I'm working on it. It's definitely a balance, and the thing is, like, yes, I definitely do want to figure out a way to do that and inspire and help. Brightwater was a great avenue for that. The tough part is we're very, very small here, and, having a bunch of people standing around that are interning or whatever is a little more difficult than in other places where they can kind of be off, like, doing tasks. And it's not to say that we just don't want people to see them or something like that. It's just, it gets very crowded very quickly for the staff in here. And even when we've had, like, somebody training a new staff member and there's like double what there'd normally be here, it gets very tight. So, I think the ways that we try to do it are through like events and, encouraging people to bring, maybe their teenager in if they want to eat, like, and just like inspiring them through the experience. And, eventually I'd like to do more. It's definitely something that, you got to pay it back a little bit and pay it forward. And, for
no pressure.
No, not at all. I think it's definitely something that's important, and it's just, we're 7 months in, so we haven't quite figured out the balance of how to have it happening here yet. But, I think Brightwater is definitely an avenue for younger folks to explore locally.
And do you want to just tell our audience just a quick?
Yeah, so Brightwater is the newest culinary school here in Northwest Arkansas. It's an offshoot of Northwest Arkansas Community College. Definitely still in its infancy, and going through its own like set of not growing pains, but it's evolving into something. And I think they're eventually going to have a very, very solid program, and the facility is mind-bogglingly nice, probably the nicest kitchens you'll ever cook in.
It's beautiful. It is beautiful.
So, I think, and they're doing like, high school and younger classes. And, I did a class there during Roots Fest where my same friend, Scott, and I taught like a class on how to like plate food, kind of make it look pretty. And a bunch of kids from the Thaden school came, and, now they've kind of like been asking if we want to maybe come cook lunch or something. So we're working on that kind of stuff. So I think, little things that we can do, are very important, especially in the community, and, we'll see where it goes, but, we're downtown. There's a train.
And I love that. And it's funny. A lot of times people are like afterwards, they're like, "Man, you didn't skip a beat with any noise that you heard." And I try to explain to people from an audio perspective that sometimes you have to just go with the flow of what it is. And man. That. Although I doubt those trains run at night, right? So
I think the last one is like 6:30 or something.
Okay. Now, what line is that's running there?
That's the Arkansas-Missouri line.
That's what
I think.
I thought. Yeah. Okay.
So
that adds some. Well, so we'll have to give them some pub and a shout out to the engineers on the Arkansas-Missouri train.
Yeah, man, give it that. Well, so the word on the street is that when they go through the intersection here, there's no actual cross guard or whatever you call that, and so they have to honk their horn a certain amount of times to like alert people. And eventually, I think the city's working on putting some guards there, so it'll probably calm down.
Oh, I'm sure
a little bit.
But that's okay.
I mean, there are some apartments in the back of this building too. So
that's okay.
And they're right on the train line. So it's kind of the charm of living downtown. Yeah. I use the word charm loosely.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So, no, I love that. So, I think you've answered most of my questions here. I guess the real question that I have is what's next for you guys? And when I say next, I use that loosely because I recognize that this is still in the early stages, and you've been very careful to mention that several times because you're still kind of figuring things out as far as what you guys want to do. But what is next with all? Did you think it was going to be this exciting?
Danielle, please.
This is for either of you.
I mean, what's next? World domination?
Oh, wow.
No. It was pretty shocking the first day we launched Reservations. We thought we were going to get a slow trickle of bookings, and it went pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just want to take our time. We don't really we're pretty confident in what we're doing. We feel like it's good. I feel like it's better now than it was, when we opened it 7 months ago or whatever. And I think hopefully in another month it'll be better, and in 7 months it'll be better. And, hopefully that's the trend. But, I don't know. This might be the only restaurant we ever do. It might not be. There's other things we want to do, but this restaurant is Danielle and I and the people that are with us here. So the 5 people that work here, including us, are the restaurant. So one of us goes down, one of us gets sick, one of us needs to travel. It's almost like, well, we're going to probably close the restaurant down or cancel the reservations for that night or whatever, just because, it's not one of those things where it's like, well, call, Bobby in and let him do it.
Right.
So, do we have ideas and get approached about other things? Definitely. But I don't think either one of us want to ever do anything for money or whatever, just to do it at the detriment of this. So, if something else comes along that's the right thing, who knows? Maybe this goes away completely. Maybe that other thing never happens. So we can keep focusing on this. It's just, but kind of like you said with the podcast, if things happen, you just keep rolling with it. I think that's sort of our, I'm not tied to anything. I love the restaurant. I love what we're doing. I'm proud of it. But also, if it went away tomorrow, something else would happen, and that's just kind of how life is, I think. So you can't get too tied down to stuff. And I think that's kind of our philosophy with the dishes on the menu and everything else. They come and they go, and, when they're here, they're great. And when they're gone, that's just it. There's something else. I don't even, we can't think about that stuff as much.
Well, it comes up. We're here. We're being present and trying to just do better every service, every day.
Yeah, it's just the little increments to get better and the details, and eventually who knows what'll happen from that. But I think, we just want to keep getting better. And if anybody takes notice of that or whatever, great. If they don't, we'll just be here doing the work. And that's kind of that's just sort of how it's going to be.
Okay. All right. I respect that. I mean, like I said, there have been several magazine articles about you guys, and, word is on the street, so people know. And I think that's half the battle, right? I mean,
it is. And that's something that I think is just, we're lucky and very appreciative of, that people have embraced it the way that they have. And, it's kind of like when you do a business or art or whatever it is, which is kind of a hybrid of both, I think you put yourself out there. It's a little, it's nice to feel that people are getting it or appreciate it. And that's very helpful to propel it forward and help you push further. So yeah, that's just, hats off to the community here for grabbing a hold of it and really,
running with it.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
Good.
Yeah, it feels really nice.
Well, I certainly hope to add to the many numbers of people that are trying to get on your rolls of future guests of this wonderful establishment. If somebody wants to make a reservation, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
So website, heirloomar.com. Okay. There's a reservations tab there. Instagram, at heirloomar. There's a reserve button there. There's also a contact button. So we release reservations like the next round will go up 1st of December, and those will be for January, February. So we release 1 month behind for 2 months ahead, basically.
So December 1st?
Yeah, so we always do the 1st, and we do it at 11 a.m. So it would be so the 1st of December for January, February, and then we will basically open them at 11 a.m. They fill up insanely quickly. However, we do have an option on that same spot on the reservation tab to join the waitlist. I think a lot of people get discouraged by that, but honestly, we use it a lot because
I tried to do that. I wasn't sure. And I said, one of the goals I wanted, because I didn't want people to think, oh, well, he's doing a podcast and he hasn't tasted the food. But I know about the food quite well. And I have some very very good friends of mine that know their way around food. So
Sure.
they spoke highly, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna
Yeah, you're gonna go in.
and I'll figure it out later. But
Appreciate that.
I did go on and try to get waitlisted, and it wasn't. I obviously didn't get picked, but I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, so you can put your name down for a specific date, or you can just pick as many dates as you want. And what happens is if somebody cancels just on their own and they go into our talk website and cancel, it just opens it up and it emails or texts like everybody who's on the wait list for that day. And it's literally the first person who just decides to grab it.
That's it.
So,
Okay.
email. And so really, we have some people that have had reservations like monthly. They've gotten the reservation, and then there's people that are close to us, friends that haven't been able to get one. And, it's kind of the most like luck of the draw, like Ferris method. The system we're using is kind of like the industry standard for the sort of restaurant that we have. But just to put it in perspective, I manually open the reservation. So I sit there at the computer, and when it clicks 11, I open it, and both Danielle and I separately right at 11 tried to get reservations this last time to see, and neither one of us got a reservation. That's not a joke.
No, I tried on my phone and a laptop.
I tried on my phone while watching the laptop as the reservations just filled up. So I understand it's difficult, but we just don't really know of any fair way to do it.
No, I like that. So, hottest ticket in town. I mean, well, I'm certainly going to make note of that in the show notes and share all your contact information about what you're doing here and how people can find out more about Heirloom and just all the greatness that's happening here.
Really appreciate that, and thanks for coming out to do this.
You.
And something else we do private events here as well because we're a small space. So if you ever wanted like a private party for you and some friends or a work group, heirloom1907@gmail, and you can email us there and address it to Danielle, and she checks the email a couple times a week, and she'll get back to you on that.
And what days of the week are you open?
Yeah, so we do reservations to the public either Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or like this last month, we opened a bunch of Wednesdays as well.
Okay.
Wednesdays are typically a night that we usually do we kind of save them for like private events or wine dinners, which we also do, and we announce those like through our Instagram and Facebook, and it's just kind of
snuck in through the wine dinners.
Yeah, that's another way to kind of slide in because we'll post it on our Instagram or whatever, and then we just take an email, so it's like first come first serve. If you email, we get a bunch of them, and you want the table, it's yours. And so we've had a lot of people come in that way too who couldn't get in through the other site. So
well, that's good. Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, hopefully some people listening to this will get some tips and ideas about how to take advantage of the greatness that's happening right here.
Turn those notifications on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, because we always do post like online, kind of like leading up to the reservation release date and stuff like that.
And I'm so bad with that. I've actually turned all my notifications off because I'm not trying to be a slave to my phone.
Understood.
Totally understand.
There's that part. It's
like,
hard. If only maybe there should be a thing of selective notification. Like notify me if Jason and Danielle open up the guest book for that, but don't notify me about anything else.
Just wine dinners.
Just
man.
No, well, listen, Chef Jason Paul and Danielle, thank you guys so much for having me here. I really appreciate it.
And we appreciate
this
you.
was certainly worth the wait. Like I said, and I tell people all the time, I mean, I've connected with just about everyone to talk about this podcast that, I've shared what I'm doing, and I've not had anyone say no to me. I've had some people say, well, not right now. I do want to do it, but it's going to have to be down the road. And you guys were the same way because we've been going back and forth for a couple of months until we could finally get things going. And now I understand why. I mean, I see it.
And I'm glad that we got it done.
Yeah.
Man.
No,
this is cool.
absolutely.
Really appreciate you doing this for us.
I appreciate that. And I will be waiting in eager expectation for this to continue to evolve, and I wish you guys nothing but success. And you guys are certainly the reason why I'm doing I Am Northwest Arkansas, because I really want people to see all the great things that are happening right here in their own backyard. And the more I get told, wow, I never knew that until I listened to your podcast, that makes it all worthwhile.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys so much.
Thank you
so much. We appreciate you.
Wow, that was an amazing episode with Chef Jason Paul and Danielle Ribaudo. I cannot wait to see what's in store for those guys in the coming months and years. Heirloom is a fabulous restaurant. Definitely want to encourage you to check it out when you get a chance. Remember, you can make reservations online. You can go to their Instagram page. All this information will be in the show notes. And I want to encourage you, if you have a group that you'd like to do a private sitting with Chef Jason and Danielle, they will work it out for you to do that. And that actually might be the best way for you to get you and a bunch of your friends together to enjoy the amazing food at Heirloom. You will not be disappointed. And now, a word from our sponsor. On the 6th of May, 1954, a gentleman named Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. It was thought at that time that it was humanly impossible for anyone to run that fast and run the mile, cover the mile in that short of a period of time. But he was able to do it. And the beauty of this is that he ran it in 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. He attained that record with minimal training and while practicing to be a doctor. The crazy thing about this is that Bannister's record lasted just 46 days. Not long after that, his record was broken. All records are meant to be broken. That's why I really want to encourage you to come out to the inaugural Blue Mile time trial and put yourself up against the best runners in Northwest Arkansas on Saturday, November 16th at 9 a.m. They will be running the Blue Mile time trial on Dixieland in front of the Fast Lane Amusement Center there in Lowell, Massachusetts. I really want to encourage you to be a part of this inaugural event. A good friend of mine is putting on this event, and he's doing it for a good cause. Most of the proceeds raised for this legal time trial event will go back to the local community there in Lowell. That's why I think it's a great cause. They're doing some programs with the local police station there and a lot of community outreach. So any money that is put into this particular time trial race is going to go right back to the community. But it's just a great chance for you also to get out there. Any of you amateur runners, amateur speedsters out there, get out and time yourself against the best that Northwest Arkansas has to offer. There will be time chips put in your shoes, and you will get an accurate reflection of how quickly you can run a mile from point A to point B. So I really want to encourage you to come out to the Blue Mile time trial on November 16th, 2019 at 9 a.m. You can register online at racewizard.com. That's RACE wizard.com. We will put this information in our show notes as well. Really want to encourage you to be part of this inaugural time trial event. We think it's going to be a blast, and there is no limit on ages. You can be young, you can be old. I'm going to try to get my young kids to run it. I think I'm going to run it, and I would encourage you to consider running it on November 16th. It's for a good cause. That's all I have for you today on this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I will see you next week. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.